Hi, my name is Abdul Shahid Khan Muhammad and my student ID number is SP3245. I'm here to discuss about Whitehouse versus Carlton Private Limited Hotel. The Australian Stock Exchange listed companies are legally liable to follow the guidelines of the Corporation Act of the 2001 of the country as imposed by the Australian Securities and Investment Commission. In this case, Mr. Whitehouse used to enjoy all the power authorities along with all the shares of the company. Hence, he tried to ensure the plan of organizational authorities after his death. Whitehouse used to have all the Class A shares, whereas his wife used to have the Class B shares and his sons used to have the Class C shares of the organization. This case involved the admittedly issuing of the shares by the director for an endeavor of imposing sustainable control of an organization. The primary of this case deals with whether the purported allotment of the shares and voting powers by Whitehouse was valid use of the power as a director and discretion vested as per the section 127 of the Corporation Act 2001 of Australia. The legal guideline deals with making Mr. Whitehouse as the director of the company, whereas the law vests the powers, discretion and authorities on him alone as the permanent governing director of the company. Whitehouse also hooks up the scheme of enabling his children to swam the organization, whereas the falling out of the children with the father caused trouble, as Whitehouse claimed those sharing of the shares as improper purpose to defend his position. Thank you. Bye.
My name is Kirandeep Kaur. My student ID is triple C3110. Today I am going to describe about the breach duties and breaching explanation. Firstly, as per the case of Howard Smith Limited versus Ample Petroleum Limited, it is very tough for defining the exact limitation of the authority of director of a company, whereas there is also not circumstantial guideline for director to exercise the fiduciary power for allotment of the shares. One aspect of a breach of the Article 173 of the commercial law is evident in this case about the validity of the allotment of the organizational shares. On the other hand, if we will discuss the case between Fraser and Valley, 1864 provided the case law that disallow the directors to exercise their fiduciary powers for allotting the shares to defeat the voting authority of the current shareholders through creating a new majority in the board. The implicit violation by Whitehouse of the Article 127 can be freed for the normal restraint to exercise his power, whereas the allotment process is entirely baseless and without substance as per the legal view. It can be assumed as the organizational constitution confer upon the director to perform the duties by using power for allotting the shares. It will still be regarded as for the purpose of the dilatation of the voting power of the shareholders along with their other duties. On the other hand, the Section 15 of the Corporation Act 2001 of Australia depicts that the powers and related authorities vested on the directors cannot be improperly used. Hence, the commercial law and director duty of the organization does not allow Whitehouse for using the fiduciary power for an impermissible and of course the vitiating purpose as a director. The power vested to Whitehouse for allotment of shares is the vested power of the board of directors, whereas this case clearly shows that the violation of Section 43 of the Corporation Act 2001. The violation of the case was done by the director of the purpose of manipulating the authority of voting of different shareholders of the company. The legal guidelines also elucidates the single and solo authority of Whitehouse as the only person to vest the authorities and discretion of shares allotting powers. The case between Howard Smith Limited and Ample Limited shows the aspect of improper exercise of the allotment power of the director as the exact limits of the fiduciary authority. The common law provides knowledge about the direction to make performance based on good faith, to run all the business affairs of the company. This need enables the protection of the organization itself along with the creditors and shareholders. Hence, we can conclude like deviation from this can cause violation of the law that can impose negative impact of the organizational interest along with the interest of the shareholder of the company.
My name is Anne Fernando and my student ID number is INT3300. So as you know, our case is Whitehouse versus Carlton Hotel Private Limited. So today I'm going to talk about the court decision evaluation and recent analysis for it. As you know, the court generated acceptance for the questionable offense of the director, which was considered as an effort to perform for the best interest of the organization. So the majority of juries in the High Court of Australia decided that the director, Mr. Whitehouse, has the power to distribute for the shares. This case provides clear establishment for a purpose of manipulation of the voting power of the investor and shareholders of the company, and this is considered as foreign for the authority of a director. Apart from that, Mr. Whitehouse deliberately argued that he did those distribution share for the best interest of the organization development. So the court held that the perception of Whitehouse to distribute share among his family for influencing the voting power is completely impermissible purpose. So we are going to the next slide. And also the court highlighted the impermissible purpose in this case, as it only needs to be the causative for the sense of presence to exercise the power. And also the court accepted that there are cases that besides the endeavor to influence, control on the organization by director is explorable format. And also the court decided the decision of Whitehouse as sheer deprivation of good faith along with improper purpose, and hence the action was voidable. So the decision was not against the third party, who cannot be provided with the circumstances of violation or directional duty. The process of performing the duties of director was protected by the Indo management rule of the organization. So the court added that transaction will sustain if the third party manages to provide evidence of being a bona fide purchaser without provision of a notice. So the court also added that the mere existence of the impermissible purpose cannot be enough for the rendering the exercise of the fiduciary power for making the shares voidable. And also, the court made a comparison with the case of the test of Mills versus Mills for the invalidation of the impermissible purpose of dominant use of the authority of a director. So the court also provided verdict that the new shares are basically unused shares for the original capital of the organization, whereas it cannot regulate the offering of shares for the organization based on the directorial duty of Whitehouse. So the court highlighted on the need for bona fide activities of the director of betterment of the organization at the development activities of direction. There is no uniform rule for the establishment of circumstances. In this case, Whitehouse did not have any presence for the good faith. And also the transaction done by the director for the organization was done beyond the interest of the organization, and the shareholders of personal interest fulfillment of Whitehouse by imposing influence on the voting powers of the shareholders. So finally, therefore the court evaluated the aspect of bad faith for making directional decision to allocate the shares based on the organizational condition of the Carlton Hotel Private Limited. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Nidhi Abhijoshi and my student ID is RACC3023. As we all know that we are discussing about the Whitehouse versus Carlton Hotel, I am going to present the impact of the verdict on the operations of Australian business organizations. In response to this iconic case about the duty of the directors in the Commercial and Corporation Law of Australia, the directors of various entities have imposed more focus on the process of announcing the organizational information to the shareholders. The case discussions are significant in the reinforcement process of the judicial opinions about the commercial law of the country. The verdict of the court focuses on enabling and compelling the directors to act properly to disclose the contract-related information of the company to the market and portray trustworthiness in their actions. This particular case of Whitehouse versus Carlton Hotel provides the judicial system with an important case law for making analysis of the commercial disputes regarding the directors' duties of the Australian corporation law. This particular case law has provided knowledge to the directors about the limit of the authority along with the need to perform the duties with utmost diligence and care to avoid breaking the law. You can refer to Lee 2015 case. This case can generate better awareness among the directors to use their powers and authorities along with the discretion for avoiding the violation of law and ethical duties to allot the shares among random individual shareholders of the organization. The directors can learn from this case to act in good faith for the organization and the shareholders by not prioritizing the personal interest, to maintain control over the voting power of the organization. This case deals with the aspect of allotment of organizational share by a director of company, whereas this allows the companies and directors to understand the limit of their fiduciary powers and authorities. This case law has provided the Australian legal spectrum with the additional supplement of the immunity of the companies for the legal prosecution to counter the directorial duties spent on improper purposes. This case law also discloses the director liability to govern the actions of allotment of shares that cannot be done by violating the spectrum of the organizational liabilities and ethical standards. You can refer to Bloomberg 2014. This case also provides case law components for the judiciaries as they can use this case to consider the issues of using the authority of a director to fulfill personal interest by providing undue advantages to family members. Also, the directors can also learn from this case for maintaining the utter coherence with the Corporation Act 2001 to avoid making violations of the law that bring upon sheer criminal penalties. The court has provided with a strong verdict for this case that can impose a sheer influence on the future practices of the directors to perform the duties, whereas the penalties for contravention must make the directors more concerned about their actions. Thank you so much.